Hey, and thanks for joining me here today. Another one of the CBC Coaching Podcast interviews. And today, hey, I got a great guest with me. He's in the chimney service industry. He's also a distributor. He's also a manufacturer. And what he's got, he's developed a service company up in the Chicago, Illinois market that's, I'm going to just tell you, it's nothing short of phenomenal. Because I'm seeing him doing some things. I've participated in the last couple universities he's put on as a sponsor, learning a lot. Hopefully, maybe they learn one or two things from me once in a while. And, and what I found out is this guy's got the same dream I have. He's seeing where we can take this industry and everybody's business to an entirely new level, if that's what they want to do. So today I want to introduce my guest for today. His name's Rob Lindemann. Grown up in the industry, I guess, been around it most of his life. Actually, I went to Aaron's Relining School with his father back in, I believe, 1986. And I've watched from the distance as Rob has taken this company, and he's basically moved it to a level I don't think Gary ever envisioned what Rob has turned this into. And I've also seen that Gary instilled a lot of work ethic into Rob, and Rob's a really dedicated guy to his business. So, Rob, I want to welcome you to joining me here today, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. I appreciate the kind words. It's very humbling coming from a pioneer in our industry and a current leader. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate
honored to be here.
Yeah, and I appreciate people like you that are willing to share and, giving tours of your company and take them through. It's kind of like one of my clients, Mark Stoner. I say, hey, man, you're running Stoner University down here in Nashville half the time. But like I said, you're a person, you cut your teeth in this industry. I think you even started on the gutter crew there at Lindemann. And you ended up with ownership of the company. Your dad started. You took it to a level probably he never envisioned. So tell me something, how tough is it for a son or a daughter who grows up in the company like you did, in the family, the challenges, and what's it like as a son to take over a business that's been run by your family? So tell me a little how that feels.
Sure. Yeah, I'll share a little bit about the journey. Currently I feel awfully proud to carry my dad's legacy onward. He put a lot of himself, his heart, and commitment into building a great business, and it's pretty awesome to be able to kind of carry on your father's legacy. From this standpoint, I'm awfully proud that I was able to do that. But it was certainly a journey. I kind of tagged along with my dad as a youth. He was always taking time to show me how to work with my hands, whether it would be changing an outlet or fixing plumbing, building, drywalling. He always took a little extra time to show me how to work with my hands, and and always enjoyed. I shouldn't say always. Most of the time I enjoyed it. In fact, when the labor got a little intense. My dad also is probably the hardest working guy that I've ever met. Following him around as a youth was pretty tiring at times, but the look back, what a gift, for to have a father that teaches his son these kind of things. I can only hope that I teach my sons and daughters some similar trades and useful life skills. So yes, it started out, tagging along with my dad reluctantly, as a youth, and then, really enjoying time with him, time building things, time creating things. He's a part-time fireman, full-time fireman and part-time all sorts of odd jobs. So yeah, he started primarily cleaning gutters. I would be 12, 13 years old with a blower on my back. He wouldn't let me on the ladders, I think, probably until I was 15 or something like that. But cleaning up the yards, driving around with my dad, and I thought it was pretty cool. But he built quite a following of loyal customers. He was just that guy that people could trust, and a lot of odd jobs fell in his lap, and he provided a secondary income outside the fire department to our family that help provide for a lot of things. So,
yeah. Well, there's a lot of people in that situation now in this industry. As you look around, if you remember right, when we were down in San Juan back in January, as you look around the room, there's a lot of people that have new ownership coming in the companies, and a lot of them are their sons, their daughters. Was it a challenge for you to move into the role from one day following your dad around to one day becoming the head guy there at Lindemann? Was that a challenge for you?
Yeah, there were definitely challenging times. I went to college. I didn't intend on working with my dad out of the gate. Studied physics and was looking at pursuing a career in there. And it was really my junior year in college where I started looking around at the world and saying, I think I really want to work with my dad. I want to work in his business. We had a couple, 3 employees at the time, and jumped on board. I said, hey, here's what we'll do. You'll earn 5% of the business every year, and for 10 years until we're equal partners, and we'll talk about it then. Seemed like a fair deal. We're doing a few $100,000 in revenue. But yeah, it sounds great. I was most interested in kind of working in a small business and working with my dad. So initially, it was very much like we had always done. I remember telling him, I said, I just want this to kind of be a real job with a real paycheck, and feel like that. And it certainly was. And I had a good opportunity early on to show my dad that I could run the business. He began traveling the first year after I got out of college. I think he took 2 or 3 weeks and took a vacation, which he probably hadn't in decades. And when your father trusts you with something like that, man, I wasn't going to let him down. So it was an opportunity for me to show him, hey, I can run the business even at a small level. Pay the bills, make sure the payroll tax was made and things like that. And it was a really cool way to run a business right out of college. And each year, his travel got a little bit longer, and my responsibilities got a little bit bigger, which was great. I was a young single guy. I didn't mind working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. It didn't matter. Loved every minute of it. And we built together a company that was grown quite a bit and profitable, and had a good time doing it. But struggles for us came when the business grew beyond what we had anticipated that it would grow or envisioned it would grow. We're just kind of working hard, and one day, we're at an impasse, so to speak, with, different views on where we want to go with the company. Obviously, my dad was interested in retiring at some point. I had visions of where the company might be, and we weren't always aligned with it. So having that conversation at that point, it was difficult. I'm sure there's some things I made mistakes doing. I'm sure my dad would say the same. So we had a pretty rough transition period. I think he'd probably have the same opinion of it, and got through it. My dad fully retired. I, bought out his equity in the deal, and today we're on better terms than we've ever been. So it ends well, but we went through a lot of undue stress. So yes, what would I advise others is what my dad and I failed to do is talk about all the what ifs. What if the company grows to beyond what we expect? What if I was to get married and my wife was sick? What if? If we went down that path enough, when the situation occurred, it wouldn't have been as challenging for both of us to deal with. So the father-son, father-daughter entrepreneurs that I've met with always encourage that. Just have those conversations now, because they're easy to have when you're not in the middle of it.
Right.
They get really difficult.
Yeah. It's like one of the things I tell a lot of people, and Cheryl, my wife, she's coming into coaching also, And one of the things she's working with is couples and family members who are involved in the business together, because it does present a lot of challenges. And it's like you said, what it sounds like is what you're recommending is people have to have a very open line of communication and have to tell each other what's on their minds. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but often, young men like myself and older men like my dad at the time, we didn't really talk about how we felt about things. And this is not just my dad and I, it's nearly every guy my age probably had a similar relationship with their dad. We were reluctant to share how we feel about things, which is essential to be on the same page as a business partner and say, hey, this is kind of what I want out of the deal. Put your pride aside and ego aside and say, yeah, this is what's important to me. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. Because often these situations is it takes a certain cat to get up out of bed one day and start something from nothing,
Yep.
like my dad did, right? To just the grit that it takes, the desire, the risk to build something out of nothing takes a very special person to do. It also takes a totally different person to take something that's already built and established and bring it to the next level that requires additional management and systems and process. And not often do people have both those skill sets. So I see in a lot of father-son relationships, they have what they need to do to take the business to the next level, but they don't always see eye to eye on who should be doing what.
Yep.
Where their gifts.
For those that don't know your dad or never met him, one of the videos that's on the Esteban site, the ChimScan site, is a video of your dad when he was in the fire department. He was an officer talking about scanning and inspecting chimneys. So anybody that's never seen or met Rob's dad, if they go to that site, they can kind of see, hey, like I said, Gary was he's a different kind of individual. I can remember when he started vacationing, and I'd always kid him every time. I said, man, all you ever do is play golf anymore. But I think today I can see why he was confident to go play that golf, Rob. So, you've done a great job there. So in finding out about this and knowing your dad and all from way back and Lolly and all that, and I know your dad built this business working at the fire station. In fact, they said he used to, basically almost had an office running out of the firehouse and always parked a vehicle in the parking lot where people could see him and all that. So as you came in, you've built this company from something that was very small to something that many people look as a phenomenal thing out here now. I mean, you guys did $1 million in business in 1 month in 2014, which is more than many companies do in a year. And knowing some of the processes and what you're putting together and what your team's done. So here's my question to you, Rob. You grew up in this. You watched your dad grow this from being a fireman, part-time chimney sweep, going into being, I think he started out as a Benelux distributor there and grew your distribution company. So was there a moment in time that Rob had this magic moment, as I call it, of what we can do in the chimney service industry? What's your magic moment, Rob?
I would probably say it was December of 2000. It wasn't at the time, didn't seem all that magical. It's when the business had grown significantly and I failed to delegate and manage properly. I felt I needed to do it all. Didn't really build well behind me. Was saying things like, if I want it done right, I have to do it myself. Was reluctant to empower and trust other people. So I ended up doing quite a bit of work, and I've told people before, it felt like I was running on a treadmill that was dialed up to go slightly faster than I was capable of running, and I was doing it for quite a while. And had just gotten married, hoping to have kids someday, and life got difficult. I ended up in the hospital with stress-induced shingles, and kind of took me out of the game, so to speak. But it also helped me realize that, despite being gone, things move forward. It's like sometimes it's like taking your hand out of a bucket of water. It just fills back up. So I wasn't as important as I thought I was to the organization. But that was the moment at which I started to create a vision for something I wanted to build. And it looks and feels and smells every bit of what the company is today. And it's a lot of fun. But, there was that moment at which I was willing to do everything. But I had to restart, and we, focused on our core values of our company as was going to be the foundation at which we were going to build things. We were going to do things altogether different. It's going to trust and empower people to do their jobs. We didn't have a culture where that was going on all the time. We're going to make it a fun place to work. I'm like, geez, if you're going to build something, why would it not be fun to work at? I got to work there. Part of the deal, right?
Right.
So I just wanted it to be an awesome place for people to work where we were driven. We still, are competitive, work hard, are trying to build the best business we can, but at the same token, constantly relying and trusting on each other, because we're in it together. So it was laying in bed is when that, kind of magic moment came together where I was willing to take a stand on some significant issues and started to really envision what a company could look like. And it's also the same point at which I started surrounding myself with a bunch of entrepreneurs from around the country. I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization, and it was the single best decision I've ever made in my life was to join that organization, business and personally. And that was a catalyst in a lot of things that happened in my life. It springboarded me into understanding what work-life balance really looked like, what a good business, what it looks like, how it's ran, what are some best business practices, things along those lines. So, there was obviously a lot of learning that had to happen, but that was the time where it started, and we just started building something great from there.
Well, that's a great story. Like I said, often it's like one of my clients and one of your customers is Mark Stoner. And one of the things Mark tells a lot of people is about failing forward. We're going to hit failures in life. So like I said, from what it sounds like, you were in the hospital. Maybe this was what changed your whole outlook. I know I had my reinvention in the year 2009, 2010. It's like, okay, it's time to reinvent Jerry. And that's what all of us go through. And some people would say, hey, man, you were, and sometimes I even call myself, I'm the worst failure in this business I've ever been. But at the same time, failure many times is what takes us forward. That's what gets us there. So this kind of leads me into my next question for you, and you kind of touched on it briefly a while ago, but how important are mentors and coaches and people to encourage you? I'm sure you're like other people. You get up some days, it's like, I'm just running in a wall. I got to get over this obstacle, and I just don't know which way to turn. So are mentors, coaches, are they of value to you and your operation?
Yeah, they're essential. I don't think we could operate without them. I've had many throughout my career. After December of 2000, I didn't really have any prior to that. Didn't seek them out. But yeah, there were, many in my life. First was my current CFO, Bob Wallace. He was the first guy that kind of took me under his wing and said, hey, this is, I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. Here's some things that I think we need to work on. So he was kind of my first coach and or mentor. But I remember hearing a speech once, and this guy by Matthew Kelly was the guy's name, and he had a quote. He said, "Nobody competes at the highest level at anything without coaching." Nobody competes at the highest level at anything without coaching, and that stuck with me. And his talk was on spirituality. So, it meant if you don't have someone in your corner in that, a spiritual director, which I've had for probably 10 years now, you can't expect to grow in that area. Same thing goes with business. Same thing goes with being a father. Same thing goes with being a husband or an athlete. Right? They're all the same. You need to have someone that's looking out for your blind spots, someone that's helping you develop your strengths, and so it's been essential. I hired my first formal business coach. I've been going close to 10 years. Rich Hill's the guy's name. So still meet with him a couple times a month. He was pivotal in clearing my mind of some of the roadblocks that I placed in my own head, because I had initially we worked on things like stress and anxiety and how it relates to business, because I had crapped out at a pretty early age, and I had this vision that if I was going to build a company, that it would create stress and anxiety in my life and my family's life. So I equated growing a business with stress and anxiety, and he helped me understand that that was really an unfair connection in that it was just my experience, but there were so many other cases where building a business does the exact opposite. You have more people to carry the load, more people to help you accomplish the goals, and proved to be exactly right. So those were some of the things he worked on with me. Yeah. And the leaders in my company have coaches as well. Mark Moses and Jason Reed are a couple coaches that are in our corner that are constantly helping us see things, because we've never built a company from where we are to where we want to go. It's the first time I've done it, but not the first time they've done it.
No.
So they've been essential. Yeah. And I've had a handful of mentors too. Typically, the coaches have been hired, people that I have paid to coach, and mentors are others that have kind of offered their time up. So I've had a couple great mentors along the way. Scott Byron and Orrin Pickella are a couple guys that built great businesses in our area. One was a landscaper that had, I think he had near 100 trucks at some point. And another guy, Orrin Pickella, was a premier builder of homes in the area. And these are men that took time out of their day to have lunch with me and help me out.
Yep. And it's like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so it was great, and these mentors are around, but they don't fall upon your lap unless you ask.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised how many people want to help.
Right, and that was a neat thing. As a coach, I don't think that people know that we use coaches. I mean, I'm spending a day with one of mine in 2 weeks, and that's Jeffrey Gitman. I'm going to spend an entire day with him, who I'm certified by, but I'm going to just spend a whole day with him to build my strengths up. I mean, and you talk about mentors, the key thing is, and I don't know if you've picked up on this, but coaches learn so much from our clients. And, when I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking to myself right now, I'm listening to a guy that I'm old enough to be his father. In fact, me and your dad are probably about the same age. And the wisdom you're saying at this age level, Rob, is truly phenomenal. I want to let you know I admire you for what you're doing. It's truly admirable. And the way you're sharing this is really great. It's really great. So let me ask you a question. If you looked over business and you looked at business role models, who do you see out there in the business world that you would say, hey, this is a role model. This is a person I admire. This is a person I would want to run and be able to accomplish what this person. Who stands out in your mind, Rob?
The people that stand out the most are some of the young entrepreneurs that I've met through being involved in entrepreneurship. One in particular, a guy named Mark Roth, who built a company called Home Warranty of America. He's a good friend of mine. I got to see firsthand him build a really great company. Also employed a lot of his family. Very charitable, honest, brilliant guy, and built an awesome company. And the way he built it was pretty spectacular. He sells home warranties, right? And typically a home warranty came. A home warranty sale happened when a home was bought. Realtors would be the people that would say, hey, use me, I'll add this home warranty to the deal. So he had built a really great business, but in the real estate and financial collapse happened, right? So he's heavy into real estate. His business hinges on real estate transactions happening, and they hit a standstill. And with the financial collapse, it's also kind of like an insurance company in that it has to be heavily capitalized, right? You have to have money on reserve or assets on reserve in the event that a tornado swipes through some state, some disaster happens, right? So he's in the two worst markets that you could possibly imagine being in that time that we all remember, and was one of the fastest growing privately held companies in the country. It made the Inc. 500. Was like the only real estate person that was in there. So it was really cool to see that happen firsthand, and inspiring. So most when I think of people I admire in business, they're most entrepreneurs that most people don't know. I have had the pleasure of meeting a couple, better known ones that I got to know that were admired them for many of the things they've done. Those were Tony Hsieh. He was the Zappos founder. Got to meet him and really admired how he built a business around culture, which is pretty cool. And also like what he's doing now. Talks a lot about happiness and trying to help businesses in general just be a happy, good place to work. It's important. So that's pretty cool. And Jack Welch, I had the opportunity to meet him, and he's been deemed like CEO of the century. Had an incredible run as an executive, and it was just neat to see that he was just a guy that put his pants on like anyone else.
Yep.
He spoke at an event that I was running and basically said, hey, I want to speak to a bunch of your entrepreneurs. Is that cool? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. He goes, here's the deal. He goes, I'll buy the beer. You get the place. And my wife's got to talk about her book a little bit, too. Because I know most of you entrepreneurs are probably going to want to hear from me, but that's the deal. And, he's just a regular guy, that worked hard and accomplished some pretty awesome things. So those are some that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people in the industry, it's like, I look at it and where this industry was, and I look at people that really key in it. Your dad was one of them, and look at the Bob Daniels, John Meredith, different people that really, it's like John Meredith. John Meredith is the reason I'm in coaching. He was the one that told me, Jerry, that's something you need to go into, and it was like, really? And, that was a really heartfelt time. And now I can remember where it was. I can remember the day, and we were having breakfast together in Hartford, Connecticut. And it was really, it changed. What John told me that day was a magic moment to me. So yeah, it's the people you meet, the people that you around, and the people you do business with, and you can learn so much from all of them. So you're a guy, from everything I've heard here, you said, you had a plan. And I know from hearing you talk, you've got a plan going in the future of what you want to be. So the people that are listening to this, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But how important is it to have a true business plan to move to the level that you envision in your mind? Is it important to have that plan and goals?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to have a plan. You know, you don't know where you're going if you don't know which direction you're turned in. You know, you need to have some point down the road that you're saying, "Hey, team, let's go there." I've never really had a formal business plan. I bought the software. It was called BizPlan Builder or something like that, and I never got to the end of it because it seemed like it was more for maybe getting an SBA loan or bank financing, of that sort. I've judged a whole bunch of business plan contests, which is really cool. Seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs come up with some pretty awesome business proposals, business plans. So I've done that, but I've never really had an all-encompassing formal business plan. But it certainly doesn't mean that we haven't had planning. I've just always looked at it, kind of from a really long view of, like what is the big, hairy, audacious goal. Like what do you want to be way out? And look at that vision. Like I laying in bed, I thought about the business so much that I literally, was envisioning what the chairs would be like, and what the people would look like. What would it feel like? So I had that, but really had to articulate that vision in goals that were a lot smaller. Even 3 years is a tough range for me to get my head around sometimes. But annually, absolutely. So most of our planning is annual, quarterly, weekly, daily kind of stuff. So here's our annual goals, and we create a lot of structures around those. So we'll do some sort of annual planning meeting and say this is where we're going to be 1 year from now, and create all the steps that we need to do to the point of each day, or even each, for a sweeps perspective, each job. What do we need to do on each job to collectively reach our goals? So that's where most of our business planning.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with you. A lot of the plannings that you see that you're filling out the forms, they are for what we'll call making deals, which means you're going for funding to a bank and you put together a lot of papers and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like you. I don't need to know all the aspects, but I need, you got to get together. Where are you going to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in 5 years? It's like I often tell my clients, hey, today is March 11th. What do you want to be talking about March 11th of 2016? And it kind of gets it down to where it makes you think. It's a way of holding people accountable, those type of things. Well, you said something a while ago, and I think it kind of leads into my next question. You had said something about your CFO and how he had also helped you tremendously with coaching you to where you needed to be as a CEO. So, but how important is a budgeting process? I know we talked about this at your event in January. So, and I saw your feelings, and it's very similar to my feelings, which is, so where do you consider the budgeting process? Is it a key ingredient of success where you've got this financial roadmap, or is it not important, Rob?
I think it's essential, and it was one of those business systems we put in place that made the most difference. I remember the days when we didn't have a budget, or didn't. I guess you would call it a financial plan. I look at a budget as it's really just what you want your P&L to look like a year from now, or any given period of time for that matter. But we generally budget annually. So what do I want that to look like 1 year from now? And this I think is the single most thing that is holding businesses back in our industry, is a failure to look in advance. In order to break past some of the thresholds where businesses get stuck in our industry, I think it has to do with a failure to budget, forecast your needs for cash, what you actually have to do to grow. There's at some point where you got to place an educated financial bet and start hiring people when you don't have the work for them, right? And that's really scary, and it holds most people back. Sometimes you have to hire people when you don't have the money to hire them to get to that next level. So you might need financing. But if you don't have a clear vision of what that may look like, it's really difficult. So I remember some of the conversations when we finally laid out a budget and said, okay, well, I got to hire A, B, and C to get to this end. And it was scary because typically we didn't hire people when we didn't have work. It just didn't seem right. But we did some analysis, and he walked me through it and asked some questions like, what would a good full-time sweep, if I just had him working in the fourth quarter and I had him sitting on the bench and paid him for 3 quarters, would it make sense to still have that person, assuming they were, safe and highly trained, right? And the answer was yes. It was eye-opening as to what opportunity you miss by not having a fully staffed team in the busy season. And that all came with budgeting, and it's not a very hard process, which was surprising to me, and it allowed me to sleep much better at night because you just, as long as we were tracking to the budget, I knew we were in the right direction, heading on the course that we planned. If I was just looking at maybe financial data that came from my accountant, that you get the statement and it's February, and you look at, well, how am I doing to last February? My CFO Bob, he'd always be like, why would we even compare to last February? It's just an arbitrary point in time. Why don't you pick 1985 or 1994? What does the last year have to do with anything we're doing this year? The only thing that really matters this year is what's the plan, what's the resources we're going to add to accomplish that plan to get where we want to go. It has nothing to do with anything that happened last year, really. And that was a different mindset for me, was to create that budget and create that forward look of what we want this place to look like a year from now. So.
Yep, and you said something earlier about your company CFO. And, that's one of the things that we are actively promoting in all of the clients I have, and we use several independent CFOs. In other words, they work with many businesses, small businesses, because what I tell my clients is you need a piece of a CFO. You don't need a full-time CFO, and a lot of people don't understand what the CFO does, but you just made an excellent explanation, because what the CFO is doing is helping put together your financial roadmap. So you're making decisions based on the budget and not on the checkbook. In fact, I made a slide on Facebook 2 days ago about that. Don't base your decisions by the checkbook. You can't run the business by the checkbook. You've got to run it by the budget and by your plan. So, so is your CFO, is this a full-time person, or is this one that you use as an outsourced person?
No, he's not a full-time employee. So early on, I'm trying to think what level we engaged him at. Currently, he's probably 20 hours a week, somewhere in that range. It was probably a lot less, when I initially hired him. My situation was I had built a business and found myself having a big, pretty, most of what I did was financial stuff, whether it was, paying the bills, cutting the checks, getting taxes done, reconciling the month close, doing all these financial things.
Depressing.
I hadn't delegated it on.
Would you actually say depressing jobs?
No, I didn't like them. I kind of like building the process, but no, it wasn't my my strength. It wasn't where I should have been spending my time for what the company, was paying me to do.
Right.
I was uniquely qualified to do some things. Closing out a month end wasn't one of them, and I had created kind of a Rube Goldberg contraption of finances, because I came from a physics background, and I was like, well, physics, came relatively easy to me. It was like, all right, there's a set of rules that you need to apply. You can't break any rules of physics, but to get an answer, there were 100 different ways you can get there. It didn't matter as long as you didn't break any laws of physics. And I looked at accounting as the same way. I mean, there's generally accepted accounting principles, and once you understand what they are, how you get from point A to B really doesn't matter. And so I created a system that was pretty convoluted that he looked at, and he was like, "Oh, that's one way to do it. I've never seen that done before." And eventually got to the point where I'm like, "Hey, can you just tell me how people normally do this?"
Yeah.
And put some small systems in place, and he helped me hire our first-time bookkeeper in-house that took probably at that point 60 to 70% of what I did off my plate. It's still with us today.
Right.
So kind of eased in. You don't have to go hire some $100,000, $150,000 CFO. There's plenty of part-time people willing to do it. I never could find that in my accounting firm. Still today, can't.
No, in fact, one of the CFOs that I use is based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and she actually came out of a conversation I had with Suzanne Dabrowski. And the question I asked Suzanne was, "Hey, Suzanne, tell me something. What training do accountants have to be CFOs?" And Suzanne just kind of laughed. She said, "We're not trained to be CFOs." I said, "But Suzanne, everybody thinks their accountant is their CFO." She said, "No. CFOs chart the future. Accountants, they look at the past. Accountants are not trained. They're not skilled in how to put that road map together." And that's where, where we came up with a couple really good independents for that use. Because like I said, you don't need a full-time CFO. You're running a distribution and a service and a manufacturing company, and you're not even using a full-time one. You're using what I call a timeshare. And that's what I'm suggesting to a lot of people that will really move them, because when you get bogged down in finances, you lose your imagination. You lose it's just not what you're good at a lot of times. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's awesome. We need more of that available to smaller companies, particularly in our industry, and they can drive the relationship with the accountant. Sometimes we're overpaying our accountant for financial support, so to speak, that we don't need.
Yeah.
You really need financial data to run your business, and that's where the CFO is looking. And for me, the accountant is just going to keep make sure I'm paying the right taxes, really.
Yeah.
Get the right numbers in the right boxes, and support me, in the event of an audit. That's what I view my accountant does.
Yep.
But it's not going to help me run the business. And I probably went through four firms and 4 different accountants promising to give me this. I'm like, I need help. I don't know, what I should be doing here. Can you help me out? And most of them said they could do it, and they just talked over my head with tax law stuff that I just ended up getting frustrated, and I didn't have anything to go back to my business to actually implement and work on. So.
No, it's like my business. I mean, believe it or not, I have a CFO in my business to advise me, and I've got one working with Cheryl's operation in her manufacturing now, because otherwise you don't have your system of putting it together of how to track it all together. And I got 2 choices. I can spend my time doing what I'm good at, or I can do something I hate that I'm not really that good at anyway. So it's kind of like looking at this, and like I said, the first experience I had with CFOs was when I started working with Mark Stoner and met his CFO, Tom Bogan. And it was like, hey, this is something that works. And building it from there to where we've got a team of a couple ones around the country. So if your clients have this you need, we got some people referred to that for them that do some really great jobs. But listen, something I saw from going to university the last 2 years, and it really jumped out at me this year, which is you have developed in-house trainers, and you've actually got several now. I'm looking at Mike Rudance, and Mike is working as, I'm going to call him a sales coach, sales trainer. And you got Eric, and I believe is it Nuance? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, Nunez.
Yeah, but anyway,
Yeah.
One's working with training your guys on safety. Because I know one of the things you said that you had this revelation was you wanted a safe company. So what you've done is you are investing your resources into trainers, in-house trainers, which is similar to what I'm doing with my clients. Even though I may be going and doing training, what they're doing is we're developing up their in-house trainers to continue it day in, day out. So from your standpoint, is this a worthwhile investment to put into the company to attain your goals to where you have these in-house resources, Rob?
Yeah, I firmly believe that you have to get to that space. It's nice, the struggle came in that, yeah, I always knew that it would be great to have a guy that had his, at least half of his job eyeing safety. And it would be great to have a guy that was training my guys, right? But never could seem to afford to do it, never could. You got four, we were stuck at 4 sweep trucks for a decade or decade and a half, too, maybe even, right? And never got past that level. So it was like, can I have a full-time trainer? The business really couldn't support that. So, it was always difficult, but, what had happened is when we began, budgeting and analyzing the company, looking at data and having some predictable growth, and that's where a lot of the ability to hire some of these people comes from. You got to grow. You got to grow to get to that point where you can even parse out a quarter of a productive guy's time dedicated to something. It came with a plan and a commitment to grow. So Mike Rudance, we had some conversations where it was like, Mike, you're not getting any younger, and this is a tough job. This is a really tough job, and I don't want the day to come where you come to me going, hey, I can't do this any longer. I need a different gig, and I don't have that job. We can't let that happen. Both you and I have to work towards a situation where that's not the case. So that was, we need to grow. Initially it was Mike, understanding and trusting my vision for, hey, no, you're not training the guy that's going to replace you, because I think that's a fear that happens often. Key guys are reluctant to train other people. They're like, well, what's going to happen in the spring when there's not a lot of work, right? So there has to be a trust that builds where you can empower someone to share some of their learning, and create a better career path for them. So that was, kind of our starting point. Mike was easing into that role with a clear understanding that someday, when the time was right, it would be his full-time role, and it wouldn't have been a surprise to anybody when it happened. And he's turned into a super effective leader in our company, training guys on sales and service.
Yeah, I've had both of those guys in seminars I taught in Lancaster the other week. Very attentive, and it was really great. I had great conversations. In fact, last week I saw Eric in Nashville, and really had some good conversations and all that. And these guys are really getting in. It's like they're really dedicated to being where you're going. It's like everybody's on the same wavelength. And again, it's because you got the leadership, you've got the culture. You've built a culture there in Chicago, and that's what it's all about. I can remember when I visited your place. I was up in Madison. I was going to Madison, and I remember I dropped by to see your place one day, and it jumped out at me. There's a ping pong table back here, and it's all about making it a fun place to work. I mean, that's part of what I'm hearing you say. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was excited to see that. I haven't seen ping pong being played in a while, and it was there was a game going on today, so that made me happy. Weather's broke, and it is seasonal, so we slow. So it's like, it's nice to kind of have a breath and go, all right, we just killed it last year. Not that we can do nothing, but hey, let's take it easy. Let's enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah,
enjoy the job. So
so you know, it's about 80 degrees down here today where I'm at in North Carolina. It's like spring is here, man. Spring is here. So listen, let me ask you another question. You guys have really jumped out in the forefront of something that more people need to be aware of, and that is how you have delved into data. Not all, you know, and you're delving into data is and the word psychometric is actually what we're doing, but it's a study of the numbers. And you guys are probably doing some really neat stuff about the key metrics in the business. And what you're doing is you're dealing with your data, you're tracking, you're measuring, you're finding out the key metrics, you're identifying who your customer is, you're identifying right down to the income brackets, the type houses, which subdivisions. I mean, it's really impressive, and it's a real science to doing this, as we both know. But is something you advise other people to start using their data to track, to measure? Is this one of the secrets of Rob Lindemann?
yeah, it's essential. I mean, we couldn't live without the data that we get. We couldn't operate the business at the level that we operated at, and our experience in helping other companies is it's foundational for anyone that wants to grow their business too. You know, and I got inspired years ago by a guy named Patrick Sheehan. He was voted Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, built a couple really big businesses, but one of his businesses he was running and thought things were growing great. You know, business was humming, and like a year later, the thing absolutely imploded. You know, and he began, recovered from that and started another business, and says, "I'm never going to let that happen again." And he described it as, if there's ever going to be a train wreck that's going to happen, I'm going to want to know long before it happens. So he was one of the pioneers in dashboarding, they call. So his big thing was like, you got to have like a one-page sheet that's red, yellow, green on how your business is operating, that you could look at it in an instant and see, where things are at. So he was a lot of the inspiration to getting a system like that. So we started implementing a lot of these things when the economy went south with us, just tracking everything that we could control and some things we couldn't control, and life becomes a lot less scary. I think often entrepreneurs want to avoid the reality of situations, and it doesn't help. So we look at, we're fanatical about the data, and it doesn't have to be as complex as we have it today. But it starts with the simple things like how many times did your phone ring? Find out what there's been guys in our industry that have been doing this for years, but find out what is the return on your marketing dollars. That in and of itself is just essential to run a business in today's day and age. We can't, we used to all just get a yellow page ad and might have done a couple other things, and that's how we got our phone to ring. But, what gets the phone to ring today isn't going to be what gets the phone to ring tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can know any of this stuff is by trying things, tracking them, and testing them, because the feedback loop, too, is a lot quicker. On most of the advertising is now direct response. Like you can send out a direct mail piece, and if someone responds to that, that's how they heard about you. The Internet is where a majority of the traffic comes through. It's different. At that point, there's a person out there that's interested in chimney services. That's fundamentally different than a direct mail piece, right? Because you're sending out to a bunch of people that are interested about a lot of things. But at some given point in time, there's only a certain amount of people in Chicago that today are interested in doing something with their chimney. I got to be right there when that moment happens. And it's an art and it's a science to present yourself to capture those those calls, and you need to know what you spend to get it, and what happens through the course of your business. What's the return on that investment? And it changes constantly. So if you don't have your eye on the ball, you're one Google algorithm from becoming irrelevant.
Right. And Job, again, this is one of the things I think that's great about what you're offering, because, you're opening up your doors for people to come see your operation. And just to clarify, if somebody wants to visit with Lindemann, what do you charge them, Rob?
Free. Nothing.
Free.
Just,
yeah.
We've had almost every week, companies are coming by, and it's awesome. I love doing it. I love meeting, people from our industry in a more intimate environment. Sure, we hope that they'll become a supply customer, because then we're incented. Now I got financial incentive to help you double and triple your business.
Yeah.
It becomes a true win-win. But we're just trying to share what we've done. Dave Pomeroy, God rest his soul, was one of the guys that encouraged me to get out there and share what we've done. He came to our place years ago, and he was the guy that finally convinced our team that it made sense to use booties and rug runners. And despite my best effort, I could not get that done.
Yeah.
But he could. An outside guy coming in going, hey, I've seen chimney companies all over the country. He got it done. But shortly after that meeting, he said, hey, you got something special here. I've seen a lot of companies, and you need to get this out there. You need to share what you're doing. And I kind of dismissed it, as he was just being nice to me. And but he was really persistent about it. You need to go do this, and put it on my heart as something that needed to be done. And so. Well,
that's one of the things.
Glad we did.
Yeah, you share with others. It always comes back, Rob. That's where it's at, and that's what's so great. A lot of times people are, well, Jerry, why do you throw all this stuff out? Well, hey, I want to help people. I want to see them go to a whole new level. And, hey, maybe the day will come that I'm part of that plan to move them to that next level, and we can help people out. But that's why you give value like you do, why I try to give value. It goes down. We see a potential in this market of what it can actually go to. I honestly, truly think you're one of the few people that sees how phenomenal the chimney service industry can be. We've just got to get the right messages out, because you said it. People aren't laying awake at night. Hey, man, I just hope I can have I want to get up more and call somebody to sweep my chimney. That's not the real world. And what we've got to do is be prepared and keep getting that message out over and over and over and over and over again. So, and that's what it's all about for all of us there. So let me ask you this about Rob. Does Rob ever get discouraged, wake up, feel like he just hit the wall? What does Rob do to get you straight? What drives you? What makes you get up every day, no matter if it's rain, it's shine, snow, ice, whatever? What drives Rob Lindemann every day?
It's to impact the lives of other people. I mean, that's truly what drives me, what motivates me, what I get excited about. It's what I'm passionate about. The company that we have is the absolute perfect vehicle to do that. I love being able to provide an opportunity for someone and seeing them take full advantage of it and change their life, their family's life. Everybody they touch. So that's what motivates me. In business, I don't hit as many roadblocks, in life as I used to. I guess I perceive them a little differently. My faith is really important part of my life. So I feel like I'm called to do something a lot bigger than just run a company. And part of that mission is going to come with some roadblocks, some setbacks. Most of which, when they happen, are things that needed to happen. It's often difficult to kind of declare it in the moment, but man, there's not too many setbacks or roadblocks that happened in my life where I didn't come out a stronger person, a changed person. So, I just, there's a bigger plan for me that I may never know, and I'm committed to it, whatever path it might be. And, that keeps me going. I think, where people sometimes have a lack of faith, they need to increase control over things. We are comfortable, I think, wanting a predictable future, the way we want it, when we want it, and how we want it. And, that's just not how I try to live my life anyway. I try to live it more purpose-driven and realize that sometimes, not so great things happen. We got to move past them. But I really get inspired, by seeing others just do great in life.
Yeah.
I mentor a bunch of entrepreneurs, and it's that's a blast. So we're all on this planet trying to do good things and build businesses, and it's fun. I got guys I mentor from Kenya to California, and the running a business is the same. That's our chimney industry. We sometimes, I think, we're so unique, but we're just like any other business, trade. My buddy in Kenya has got the same set of issues that I have. It's employees, it's cash, it's
Yeah.
Every now and then, on a Skype call, he'll be like, "Oh, sorry, mate, I had a village fire," and I'll be like, "A village fire? What?" I don't run into that. I don't run into that very often, but outside, some of those unique circumstances, we're just, business is business. But so I get inspired by a lot of people that have a great outlook on life and are just going out there trying to do good things.
Yeah. Do you get inspired when you watch people you've helped become successful, Rob? Is that a drive for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is a thrill to see some of the, the businesses, any of which in our industry, to see them, growing, 50, 60, 70%. It's just awesome because it's impacting their life in such a big way, and it's so cool to do, and I remember one fellow called me, and he had read, I think, a news article or something I did, and he was a chimney guy, and he called me, and he's like, I don't know why I'm calling you, but I just thought maybe you might be someone that could help me. And I read the articles that you wrote, and my brother and business partner just died. And, he kind of ran the business, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know who to call. And, at that moment I thought that I may be more uniquely qualified to help this guy right now than any person on the planet. Right then and there. And to have that laid upon you is a gift, that I could do that for somebody. And to help someone in that capacity. I mean, you don't have opportunities like that in life very often. And, difficult situation for sure. But, it was like I couldn't have done anything more important that day than stop the show and said, "Hey, how can I help you?" And it feels really good, So any opportunity like that, fun to do.
Yeah, in fact, I've got a call later today from a gentleman in business that his wife recently passed away. So he's not a client, but it's somebody, and it really makes you feel good when you can offer some help to people like that. Because I know in my, the biggest satisfaction I have in business today is watching a client get what they're looking for. I mean, one of my clients often said they think that I want them to succeed more than they do. And sometimes that may even be true, and that's why you push them and you push them and you push them, because they're capable of getting there. They just need that little extra thing. So let me ask you this, Rob. We got a lot of chimney sweeps hopefully going to listen to this podcast. what would you share with them? What just out of your head, what is it that you think can make them move to the level they envision? What is it, man? What's in your mind that can make a difference, Rob?
They got to start, dreaming, believing, that they can do it. Think big. Surround themselves with people that inspire them. There's a world of people that are going to tell you what you can't do and why you shouldn't do it and why it shouldn't be done. And I just think is dream big. Believe in yourself. Believe in your people. Trust your people. And don't take life too seriously. It's the journey should be fun. Because at the end of this crazy life, there's not a lot of things are going to matter. And one of the things that is going to matter is just your relationships with other people. No one on their deathbed is ever saying that, man, I wish I would have made that last business deal or grown my business bigger. It comes down to people and relationships. Maybe your relationship with God or your relationship with your kids or your father or your friends or, and as entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of opportunities to build relationships with people. And, at the end of it all, it's really going to matter anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, brother, you don't know how much I appreciate what you've offered here today. I think the things you've given can excite people. I think it can give them a whole new outlook and possibly some ideas to motivate them. And I think, am I right in, let me ask you this, am I right in saying that Rob Lindemann's email and phone is open to anybody that feels that Rob could offer them words of wisdom?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Give me a
And
call, shoot me an email. I'd love to. It's what I enjoy doing most. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Rob, I'm looking forward to making the next trip with you guys to Lindemann University. I've been a sponsor there for the last 2 years, looking to making that 3 years in a row come next January. I believe you said you were going back to San Juan again. And we've got our CBC Success Summit coming up in about 5 or 6 weeks in Indianapolis. Still got, love to see your guys, some of y'all join us there if possible. But I really want to thank you today because these are the type things, like I said, I'm not doing this today to build my business. You're not doing it today to build your business. We're doing this jointly together to hopefully excite some people and let them see what the potential is. So from Jerry to Rob, I want you to know, you tell your daddy that he needs to be really proud of where you went to. And you tell him that's the guy that knows back in 1986 that your daddy didn't eat Chinese food because of whatever they put in it, okay?
I'll be calling him today for sure. I'll let him know.
Yeah, when we were together.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's awesome,
Yeah, I remember we were going to lunch one day at Aaron's Lining School, and hey, we're going to go down to Chinese buffet, and Gary said, I ain't going there. They serve MSGs. And I said, what in the world is an MSG? Oh, it puts you to sleep and does all this. So anyway, but Rob, I really want to thank you. I think it's been great, and I hope maybe we can do another one of these down the road. I hope you're agreeable to that.
For sure, anytime. Love to. Appreciate it.
Well, folks, thanks for tuning us in. Like I said, this has been Rob Lindemann, Lindemann Chimney Service, with me today. Like I said, he's got an open door invitation. Do you want to go see how they work? Hey, just give them a call. They'll set a time, take the time with you. It's a great way. A lot of my clients have been there. They benefit from it, and from that standpoint, go out, make your business what you want it to be. Just like Rob and I have talked about today, you got to decide what the level is to take your business to the level that you've always dreamed of. Don't sit here one day and wish you to fill that dream. Go for it. That's what Rob did. That's what I'm doing. And that's what we hope that you'll do. Look forward to joining us next time. Talk to you later.